Okay, hello everybody. My name is Tapio Halkaho, and I am working as a senior scientist in Geology Survey of Finland. Now it's last session, session number 5, environmental, social and governance aspect of critical raw materials. And our keynote speaker is Toni Eerola, and his subject is the evolution and impacts of the Finnish mining-sceptical movement from the uranium debate, the green energy transition and environmental protest wave. Please, stage is yours, Toni.
Thank you. Good afternoon for all. I hope you had a good lunch and you are relaxed to hear somehow different topics that we have habituated to hear a couple of days here. So I'm representing Geological Survey of Finland. I'm from the Mineral Economic Solutions Unit and Mineral Intelligence Group. And my work is related to social license to operate, CSR, corporate social responsibility, and ESG issues in Geological Survey. So let's move on. So, before I tell something about my background, I want to make a kind of exercise with all of you. So you can see there in the left side there is a geologist deeply involved with the tight geoscientific research, processes, lithologies, mineralizations, Archean granites, and so on. And in the right side, there is a geologist who is working with social issues. So, there are a lot of to be wondered. So I want that you now are the geologist in this left side, okay? And so, sit firmly in your chair, open a little bit your feet, and now we imagine that here is a line between geology and society, and this line is shaky, it is tense, okay, so we go under that line into the geology, okay, so I'm watching you, you will do this with me, okay, so we are under this line deeply. Go on, please. I'm watching. You there? So, do you see mineralizations, lithologies, plutons, processes, conditions, deep time, all that stuff? Do you hear? Do you feel your lunch in your stomach also? Yeah. So now we get back slowly in order to not have any disturbance, So we get slowly up from we extract our head from the ground, okay? So when we are extracting, so everybody will make this. When I count 1, 2, 3, okay? Okay, heads off, we are here. And now stand up, please. So we will clean up, all the dust and rocks and minerals and that stuff. And we will look for neighbor and say hello and shake hand. And shake hand. So the stakeholder engagement and communication. And now we end this exercise by saying hello to anti-mining and mining-sceptical groups and activists. Hello, hello. Okay, thank you. It was beautiful. So, let's move on. So my background is, I explain why I am dealing with that. I'm a geologist, but I have been interested in these issues since student. So I graduated in Brazil as a geologist, so I saw mining conflicts there in Latin America. I kind of interested on them since student, and I wondered, maybe sometimes, in some moment in my career, I will be able to investigate them. So I had interest in social, political, and environmental issues at that time already. And so when I came back to Finland, one of my professional experiences was to be involved with the uranium exploration in Finland. It was 2006, 2008, so I faced that resistance personally. So I can say that I am kind of expert by experience in uranium exploration, in uranium debate. And so at that time already I started to develop and think about stakeholder engagement and communication in mineral exploration. And reason for that was also because in Brazil, when you are in a field work there, in a remote place, no matter where, you need to communicate with landowners because they need to know who you are, what you are doing, why you are doing, because otherwise you can be shot without previous warning. So it is kind of self-safety issue there. But I brought that to Finland, and even when I was not doing any mineral exploration, but for example basic geological research or mapping, I was communicating always with the local residents, municipality, local media, and so on. So this was always part of my career. And then I started to work at the GTK in 2012, soon after the Talvivaara gypsum pond leakage. And my task was to raise public awareness of geosciences, but also look for these SLO issues and ESG issues. And I have been participating and am participating in several EU projects where this issue is one of the work packages. And currently I'm also a PhD student, despite of the age, in University of Eastern Finland, where I am almost finishing my PhD thesis, and it's environmental politics, and it's about social geology. So some of you might know this term already. It was created quite recently, 2012, not by me, but it exists already. And it has also applied for mining issues. So this is what I'm doing right now. And so let's go to the actual work. What is this presentation about? So protest cycle theory is what I applied to look for the mining-sceptical movement and its development in Finland. So the one protest cycle or wave is a heightened moment of several protest social movements, environmental, non-governmental organizations and individuals that kind of unify forces in order to promote reforms, or they can be political, economic, environmental, social, so on. So this is one phenomenon that has been identified in the world. And it has happened in Finland also. So there are the characteristics of this protest cycle theory. And we have had in Finland several of these protest cycles. So there has been widespread mobilization, media attention, politicization of national environmental and natural resources management, debate on environmental justice decision-making and the relationship between experts and common citizens, anti-authoritarianism, distrust towards authorities and experts, demand for reforms, criticism of modernity and anti-nuclear attitudes. So here are the 5 environmental protest waves that we have had in Finland. So it started, the first one was in 1960s, 70s. This is a worldwide phenomenon. There was this environmental awakening. Then in the end of 70s, beginning of 80s, we have this Koijärvi movement. A Green Party was founded. Alternative way of life was one of the currents going on there at that time, an anti-nuclear movement. And then forest disputes during 80s and 90s, animal and radical activism during the 90s, and then global justice movement at the end of 90s and beginning of 2000. And after that, we have a kind of latency in the Finnish environmental movement. And methods that I have used to study these issues, so of course literature review, since these protest waves and all the literature concerning mining disputes in Finland, I have been participating and observing in activist events, demonstrations. And there is also autoethnographical component, which means that there are a lot of my personal memories and experiences in this interpretation of how the things have evolved. And this is also retrospective and longitudinal study, so I look back in the history, but also I have been following and publishing papers during this evolution. And so in longitudinal study, you take points in time and you follow kind of some development. And the concept that I have applied here is that mining-sceptical, I mean that it is a movement that demand reforms in mineral governance or in policy, and it's different of anti-mining. So anti-mining can oppose mining no matter what. And dispute is a term that I use for Europe and Finland to demonstrate, to define a kind of public debate that can have demonstrations, petitions, appeals, and all the Finnish and European disputes in general, they are low to medium intensity based on environmental justice atlas classification. And it's different of conflict. So conflict for me is something that involves mass mobilization, mass arrests, violence, and this happens usually in global south, developing countries, where other social and political issues are also happening together with the mining conflicts. So let's start from uranium debate, but before that I would like to call your attention that Finland had during all these couple of these environmental protest waves, there were local protests against mining. For example, in Outokumpu during 60s, 70s, the local people was opposing water pollution at that time, and then during the 1980s, during one of these protest waves, there were activists that opposed GTK's uranium exploration. So we had kind of 2 separate events in time before that. But uranium debate began already in 2005 when Areva, French Areva Kojima, came to Finland, applied for huge areas in southern Finland, in quite densely populated areas, and send French geologists who don't speak any Finnish to the countryside. So you can imagine what you get from that. So this uranium debate started. It was mainly local. So there were a couple of places, so Uusimaa province in southern Finland, then North Karelia, Kuusamo, and also Lapland were affected by these local disputes. And the problem was that before that, during the 80s and 90s, Finnish mining industry was quite almost finished, almost ended. So there was a kind of gap in mining and mineral exploration for a long time, and it was activated by foreign companies that rushed to Finland with this commodity boom. So uranium debate was also generated by the public debate on climate change. So this was the reason why companies were looking for uranium at that time. And foreign companies, they caused resource nationalism in Finland. There were, of course, anti-nuclear attitudes. The activists also, they were not looking only mineral exploration, but also other projects which were associated to uranium. So there were four, and we will see which are there. They are challenging authorities and experts. There were performances and art involved in their protests. They innovate in this sense. And usually when we talk about uranium, we might talk about geology, but they were able to involve even theology with that, the protests, which is amazing. And the consequences of uranium debate were that there was a hearing was established in permit process that was did not exist before. Mining Act was renovated, mineral policy was established, and there was a start of some social science research, master thesis predominantly at that time. And then from uranium debate, so it was almost entirely dedicated to oppose uranium exploration, but then we have these four projects where uranium is associated. So Juomasuo in Kuusamo, Rompasrajapalot in Rovaniemi and Ylitornio, Sokli in Savukoski, and famous Talvivaara. And that changed this kind of moment from only uranium to concern also other commodities. So there was a development from 2010 when activists realized that, yeah, Talvivaara has uranium, but it has kind of hidden from applications. And 2012 happened the gypsum pond leakage of Talvivaara, and that was the key moment that changed this uranium debate to a mining debate. It was concerning now also mines and mine projects. And here is the famous Talvivaara. So associated with uranium, it has had environmental problems, and a Stop Talvivaara movement was founded. There was this gypsum pond leakage in 2012 as a key event. Local debate turned to a national one, and people were questioning all the mining industry, all the foreign companies, you know, operating in Finland. And mining-sceptical movement spread, so it was not only anymore kind of local uranium-related movements, but also they started to appear here and there where there were mineral exploration or mining projects going on. And after this gypsum pond leakage, you know, the Talvivaara company went into bankruptcy. It had financial problems. It needed to be taken over by the state. So Terrafame is running the operations now. And there were, as a consequence, there were improvement on environmental and mining authority action and preparedness for widespread social science funding and research and other kind of administrative issues that kind of improved the governance of mineral resources in Finland. And also the Finnish Network for Sustainable Minerals was founded at that time. So one of the cases which was clearly affected by Talvivaara debate was Hannukainen in Kolari. So tourism had developed around this Rautuvaara old mine site, and in Ylläs, over there, Quartzite Hill, which is a resort for ski and recreation. And there is nature tourism, and as you can see, there are a lot of protected areas, national park, and so on. So this Hannukainen project was a kind of reopening of the mine and its expansion in this area. So when Talvivaara debate was running, that affected attitudes at the local level. And at the same time, there were financial difficulties of this Northland company. But at the end, what really kind of ignited resistance was a poll that was made there about the local attitudes. So it was found that tourism entrepreneurs, tourists, second homeowners were concerned, very concerned, and opposing the project. So when these results were released, it started, Pro-Ylläs was founded in opposition to this project. So this is clearly evidencing how Talvivaara affected local, and then a poll in certain circumstances can create social impacts also. And local opinion is divided, so most of the opposers are tourism entrepreneurs and also second homeowners. And this leads to a phenomena that I call NIMLA, not in my leisure area. We will talk more about that. And already I launched this term already in 2015, but Brown et al., they did not know that. So they called a special type of NIMBY, because it was, the opposition was not presented by local residents, but by second homeowners. And so we shift in time closer to nowadays, and we are in green energy transition suddenly. So we see that investments and permit applications started to rise suddenly in 2016, and we there is much noise about green energy transition. You know, activists, they have finally realized that that actually green energy transition needs raw materials, and they knew that, okay, they come from mines, so that is something that I oppose. I don't want any more mines, but they forget that most of the investments in mining and mineral exploration goes still to gold. So there is much noise about this green energy transition. But anyhow, mineral exploration entered into new areas, for Sami homeland and these areas with the lakes and cottages in Finland. Then Critical Raw Materials Act is also launched. And mining-sceptical movement has grown and networked even nationally, but also with European movements. And some of the EU projects have been targets of their complaints, kind of pan-European mining-sceptical movement has united their forces and complained against many projects. And I was one who was mentioned by name in this, that geologists cannot do this kind of research. So here we are. And one of the key events in this moment in green energy transition was Heinävesi. So it is located in a lake area, and there are a lot of these cottages where celebrities have their second homes and so on, politicians, and so it was really strong movement that was founded by this pro-Heinävesi. And here also monasteries and Finnish Lutheran Church, they involved in a mining dispute. So theology is together with the geology sometimes. And move of FANK is Finnish Association for Nature Conservation. So one of the representatives moved to that region and gave an interview about this case that this mine of graphite will pollute whole Saimaa Lake area. And this is one case that actually only case can signify so much that they made a kind of appeal, a petition to renovate Mining Act together with others, but the initiative was by Pro-Heinävesi. And we had quite recently, last year, the renovation of the Mining Act again. And this is a case where political, reputational acceptance risks are realized. Reputation because this Graphintech is related to Beowulf, which had already Gallak a dispute in Sweden, so it came to Finland and journalists noticed, oh, this is a company that is related to Beowulf. And of course, acceptance risk is realized when you have a dispute going on, and political is because its action resulted in a new Mining Act renovation. So it can harm other companies also because of that. And Nimla is also involved. So Sakatti, I think that this is very well known for many of you. So it is in Natura 2000 area. There is reindeer herding, recreation in some part of that, and company has decided because of opposition and because of protected area, decided to go underground and compensate ecologically. But no matter, there is need for legislation change because this is protected by, there is Meyer protection and Natura 2000, so Meyer protection need to be kind of dismantled. And this goes probably to the government to decide, but also EU Commission maybe can be involved in that. And what is significant here is that the Extinction Rebellion was turned to protest there and interrupt the drillings and so on. But this is a good case and good example that it can be maybe one of these strategic raw materials projects in Finland because it's so significant. So let's see how it develops. So we have here a map of situation, localities and projects that are opposed. So in any case, only 23% of companies have been opposed in their mineral exploration and mining projects. And they are concentrated in northern and southern Finland. The old cases are in northern Finland and the newest ones are in southeastern Finland. And mostly focused on metals. There are involvement of local communities, NGOs and social movements. Also indigenous Sami people, tourism and cottage owners, Nimla. And land use is the most common reason for that. So we have these sensitive contexts that are nature protection areas, reindeer herding, groundwater areas, Sami homeland, tourist destinations, and association with uranium. And mining booms are always problematic because when activity increases, companies have no time or resources or will to look for the associated land use. And they might make applications in a hurry and don't practice any stakeholder engagement or communication. And you create this time kind of void of information that is easily filled by some third part which don't have maybe positive version about what is happening. So green energy transition and uranium debate are good examples of that. And of course, Critical Raw Materials Act, maybe it will radicalize this movement in Finland. So far it has been public debate and demonstrations, appeals, petitions, and nothing more than that. So here I present this not in my leisure area. Its technical term might be better translocal opposition by tourists, cottage owners, and tourism entrepreneurs. So there is a strong attachment to a place. You know, people might not live there, but they want not to be disturbed during their vacation, weekend, and so on. and they want to determine which livelihoods are allowed in their cottage place, you know, in the municipality. So they take part of the discussion, they influence the local debate, and most of the cottage owners, they are quite, let me say, middle class to upper middle class, wealthy, elder or older people. They have influence, they can mobilize, they represent several professions, so lawyers, engineers, and so on. And they offer a kind of pool of counter experts. So this is a really significant phenomenon that we are having in Finland. And most of the cottage owners are from Uusimaa, so in southern Finland, and they're and it's the most anti-mining province in Finland, even that there are practically no mines. But they irradiate their influence through the country. So it's very, very interesting. And there is a new activist profile that professors, entrepreneurs, and diverse professionals take part of you know, environmental activism. And these counter-experts also. So this is a kind of picture of the evolution. So we have this blue line is climate change debate. The orange one is the mining debate. There are key events like, oh, this is not working. But anyhow, this red arrow is Talvivaara, and the blue arrow is Heinävesi. So the first stage of the evolution of the mining skeptical movement in Finland was uranium debate, and it was soon after this global justice movement and its latency, which took a couple of years ago. So at that time, it refreshed the Finnish environmental movement from after years of latency, and it also it was a time of reactivation of the Finnish mining industry after, you know, decade of recession and almost ending of the Finnish mining industry. And so when we go in time, so we start to have this circular economy debate, Fridays for Future, climate move, degrowth, green energy transition, extinction rebellion, and critical raw materials act, and battery minerals boom. So we are in that moment now there. And yeah, so I will just show quite quickly the evolution of, so these are the local movements that took part of the uranium debate. And then mining debate, you see the number of movements have increased, and now we are in the green energy transition. But what is paradoxal is that support for mining has increased among the population. So there is some kind of paradox that number of anti-mining or mining skeptical groups increase, but at the same time the support for mining among the common population, it increases also. And this is because of pandemic, Ukrainian war, and so on. So people have really understood this supply security issue. And here I compared these characteristics of protest waves with uranium debate and mining debate. So in protest waves there is a key event, contested activity, new issues and innovation, collective action, opportunity window, media attention, anti-nuclear attitude, distrust in authorities, challenge of authorities and experts, and request for participation in decision making and impact. So we have all these characteristics fulfilled by both. So that's why I have kind of suggested that this mining debate that has taken 2 decades to evolve, the mining skeptical movement, is the 6th environmental protest wave in Finland. So climate change debate has been intimately related to this evolution of the mining skeptical movement, and that is part of this 6th wave also. And there are impacts on natural resource governance, there are characteristics of the previous protest waves, And NIMLA is one phenomenon that has emerged as important, and probably this is found in other countries also, at least in Sweden. And we are expecting that there are signs of radicalization between this movement, and it has been predicted that at least in the climate movement can radicalize even for violent actions in Finland. So we are in Sweden, there was one episode of armed guy in a drilling site, so maybe this can happen in Finland also. And here is the paper. It was published, it's quite fresh. It was published during this summer. And here, so I give all this evolution and its implications. So thank you.
Thank you, Toni. In my work history, I have done a lot of exploration and mapping in the field, and I have discussed many landowners during my career, and mostly they have been very optimistic, and they have very curious to know how we work, and actually it has been a very positive thinking in landowners in Eastern Finland, where I have done most of my field work. But of course there is some people who don't they say that go away from my land. But mostly when after you have discussed some moment, short time or long time, they allow you go to their land. Of course there is a 1% who say totally no to my land. This was a comment. So, have you questions?
Hello, thank you very much, Toni. Very good presentation. I have about 2 questions. One of the questions is, do you think that underground mining can help? Because when you talk about not in my leisure, because you can see these things, so probably people are more negative. But then if it's underground and I cannot see it, then maybe that might change the way I think about mining. So that's the first question. Do you think maybe considering underground mining might help change the negativity that we are getting from the public? And then the next question too is, how do you think we can reduce the influence of outsiders? Because sometimes the people that are in the local area where they're mining actually don't have a problem, but then you have outsiders that come in with cars, and they have people that actually mobilize them and move them to these local areas to demonstrate. But then the local people actually don't really have a problem. So how do you think, how can we actually address this issue with outsiders that come actually to affect things that don't really have anything to do with them? And then the third question actually is almost like what he said, that do you think that public involvement and education about what we are doing might help to reduce the negativity? So these are my questions. Thank you.
Yeah, complex questions. I think that this NIMLA is an interesting phenomenon, that these people are not local, in a sense that they have a kind of vacation holiday home there in that place. But we have seen that in many cases there are always people from outside, that they are activists and they really participate in actions, and they can be even from abroad. So we have seen behaviors that are not typically Finnish in protests. So, for example, vandalism, it's not typical of Finnish protests. It's quite calm and law-obeying and so on. But this NIMLA is really a significant phenomenon. But I think that overall, really mineral exploration and mining, we need to improve responsibility and to talk with people, to meet people, and don't hide in their bushes, instead of really going to meet and talk and so this is one way, and raising public awareness, of course, that should be done. It's vital for us. But I don't know if I answered. Yeah, okay.
Me again. Toni, do you have any examples where actually it was possible to convince a mining skeptical group through application of best practice or education of some kind, so that actually the dispute was resolved?
Not. Anyway, I think that the way how we behave with them, if we treat them as equal and you know, respect and politely, then you can see that they change their attitudes towards at least the actor, you know. So that is positive, and then they can even listen. But otherwise, if you, it's like they attack you, but you need to just, you know, move and don't get it personally and don't respond in the same way and be provoked. So I think that in this sense you can have dialogue and for example, the Finnish Association for Nature Conservation was against uranium exploration, but I went asked to participate in their events at that time and to talk with people. So their behavior toward me was changing, but not always. There is a quite difficult example in Kuusamo.
Toni, I was thinking in the light of what Sirli explained yesterday about the history of opposition to uranium in the 1980s and how influential that was in political reform and independence. It's an interesting comparison you make with Finland. But another area is with respect to radioactive waste disposal. And that's the most interesting study in Finland, to look at the degree of community acceptance in the area where the reactor is. That's quite a different story, but a very interesting one to look at. And likewise, in the past, there were, I recall when I first came to Fennoscandia, in Sweden also, when site selection, they actually had letterboxes for hate mail. So they were trying to be open enough about that. So there was those attempts for dialogue. But the Finnish story of the disposal of the waste, which is a very sensitive and unresolved issue in many countries, is an important one.
Actually, my second supervisor, he investigates these nuclear disposal disputes and attitudes. But it was funny when I was working in Kuusamo in uranium exploration, and it was a site where nuclear disposal research was opposed at 80s, I guess. But when I went there to uranium exploration, it was not opposed at all. So quite paradox.
Okay, one question. Who? Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for excellent presentation and interactive one. Thank you. Your words, I'm expert on experience, by experience. This, yes, was very meaningful for me. It's clear that some countries that are very well developed have this such sharper problem with mining development, and this the situation, the scenario is completely different for the countries that have are underdeveloping. And such kind of social problems in our country are not so acute and present because their life is related to the mine. But I will wonder if you tell what you would recommend for this kind of for these countries to be well prepared and for these social problems in the on the future, because okay, so far we have no such sharper problems, but in the future maybe have some social or some social problems or against the mining in our less developed country. Your advice for these governments in case.
Yeah, so the problem regarding, for example, if we compare global north and global south countries, so there is inequality, which, you know, it has huge roots in the society, and this marks all the debate, all the struggles in very different ways. People have no trust in authorities, in government, in police, in anything, you know, and this already push this kind of debate on mining for conflict, that you are not heard, so you need to really protest in order to be noticed and taken into account. And of course, in Global South, the problem is that state is mostly absent. You know, it doesn't provide rights, it doesn't provide services, and therefore people, there is not that trust, you know, that we have, for example, in Nordic countries. And so there are so many things that need to be improved in these societies that it's like reforming whole society in order to, and it's not easy to have mining projects in countries like that. They are unstable in politically and economically, and there are more risks also. So it's quite challenging.
Time is running, so those who have questions can discuss with Toni after this session. And thank you.